As Eala walked out of the Linz Design Hub, the sharp Austrian morning felt charged with pure energy. That tension wasn't just in the breeze. It was a living pulse, vibrating through thousands of fans who had trekked across the continent. They converged from Munich, Zurich, and Milan, all driven by a singular mission: to witness their hero in person. For hours they braved the biting cold, shoulders draped in stars and suns, voices raw from screaming her name. Her name thundered through the streets of Linz, reaching a fever pitch until, finally, she emerged. Yet the scene that unfolded shattered every expectation, going far beyond a simple wave or a staged photo op. Instead, Alex dove into her gear, hauling out bundles of her personal signature jerseys. One by one, she bypassed the staff and organizers to place those shirts directly into waiting hands. Every piece featured the Sampaguita, the national bloom, serving as a wearable piece of their shared identity and home. The atmosphere shifted instantly as the sea of people pushed forward, hit by a tidal wave of raw feeling. Some wept openly, while others reached out in shock, their trembling phones struggling to record the miracle. It transcended sports. It was a soul-level connection that left security scrambling to manage the electric chaos. Inside the command center, the tournament's top brass could only stare at their monitors in stunned disbelief. Their faces were a mix of pure awe and legitimate worry, witnessing a phenomenon they could not even categorize. Alex wasn't just distributing gear. She was handing over a fragment of her own journey to her people. That singular, selfless act turned a routine morning into an eternal memory. While this center had hosted giants like Serena, Maria, and Coco for 30 years, nothing matched this energy. This wasn't just another world-class athlete passing through. This was something much more profound. The moment Alex arrived for the Upper Austria Ladies Linz Open, the entire city's rhythm completely shifted. Linz, typically a serene Austrian getaway, was suddenly swept up in an unstoppable storm of devotion. An estimated 35,000 supporters had flooded the streets, arriving from every corner of Europe. Whether by plane, train, or a cross-country drive, they poured in from London and Italy just to be near her. The landscape was surreal, fans camping on sidewalks and national flags fluttering from every street lamp until daybreak. Local diners traded their traditional fare for plates of adobo and lumpia to feed the hungry crowd. Hotels, bewildered by the sudden influx, began decorating their halls with vibrant icons of the islands. Even the seasoned tournament directors were caught completely off balance by the scale of the arrival. They were used to major crowds, but this level of sheer, unadulterated devotion was unprecedented in their history. The Eala phenomenon, which had already rocked Miami and Dubai, was now rewriting the rulebook on European soil. But no one was truly ready for the main event. Even with practice at 10, the venue was swamped by 8. Supporters crushed against the guardrails, their collective roar building into a deafening wall of sound. The air grew heavy with tension until 9:47, when her team van finally pulled into view. As Alex stepped onto the pavement, her bright, trademark smile ignited the entire plaza into a frenzy. It was an explosion of pride and disbelief as she made her way toward the player entrance. Suddenly, she stopped mid-stride, pivoted back to the vehicle, and hauled out a massive duffel bag. Time seemed to freeze as the crowd leaned in, and every camera lens tightened its focus. Even the guards stood frozen, watching as she unzipped the bag to reveal stacks of signature apparel. What happened next wasn't just a PR stunt, it was the birth of a historic legend. She didn't stand apart as a celebrity, she stood among them as a sister, holding those white jerseys high. Each shirt bore the Sampaguita flower, the same design that vanished from shelves in Miami within hours. By this point, the fabric represented more than a brand. It was a badge of global belonging. Alex walked right to the edge of the barrier, handing the first piece to a little girl at the front. The second the girl felt the jersey, she collapsed into tears, hugging the gift as if it were sacred. The mass of people surged again, fueled not by greed, but by a powerful collective heartbeat. It was the physical manifestation of years of longing and the weight of every sacrifice made. These were people who spent their lives working abroad, now seeing their own pride reflected back at them. Guards scrambled to form a human barricade, desperate to maintain order. Yet Alex calmly waved them away, her face radiating a serene, comforting warmth. No words were required. To her, this wasn't a crowd, it was family. For nearly 20 minutes, she stayed rooted to the spot, gifting shirt after shirt, never rushing or flinching, completely immersed in the connection. These weren't corporate freebies or tournament leftovers. They weren't tied to a sponsor. They were hers. The Eala label, her own personal brand, debuted right after her painful departure from the Miami Open, an answer written in identity rather than words. The aesthetic was minimalist but deep. Crisp white fabric, sharp and timeless, with the Sajida flower stitched right over the heart. Subtle details whispered of the Philippine flag. Every single thread carried a heavy, deliberate meaning. That flower, the Sajida, a symbol of grit and absolute grace, was far more than just a simple design choice. It stood for endurance and quiet power, the soul's ability to thrive in the harshest shadows, her own journey now shared with them. Because when a fan pulled on that jersey, they weren't just cheering for an athlete. They were declaring their heritage, their immense pride, and the fact that no matter where they landed, they belonged. In a land far from home, surrounded by thousands of strangers, that fabric transforms into something sacred. It turns into a lifeline. A quick glance at that specific flower is enough to bridge the gap. Suddenly, the distance vanishes. Strangers become kin. Stories spark, smiles flash, and an instant, silent bond is forged. You are one of us. That is the soul of the ISA brand. It isn't just merchandise, it's a tribe. As the scenes at the Upper Austria Ladies Linz Open proved, that tribe is massive, raw, and deeply emotional. Their devotion is fierce. What Alex did that day wasn't just a random act, it was a masterclass in visceral storytelling. Sure, those shirts had a price. They cost money to create. Giving them away meant losing revenue. But her gains? They were immeasurable. The sight of her embracing weeping fans, the clips exploding across social media, watched millions of times. Those memories traveling from one border to the next, you simply cannot put a price tag on that kind of impact. Inside the control booth, officials from the Women's Tennis Association watched the scene unfold with wide, stunned eyes. Their faces said everything, a mix of confusion and nerves. They'd seen ripples of this in Melbourne and Dubai. But this was a total sea change. A player bypassing the system to gift her own brand? The crowd was so thick it nearly broke the security lines. It felt less like a tennis match and more like a rock star's tour. On the surface, the organization tried to keep its cool. Their official statement was polite, mentioning safety protocols while giving a nod to Alex's heart and her bond with the fans. But in the shadows, they were reeling. One insider confessed they were paralyzed because this shifted the entire landscape. This transcended points and rankings. Alex wasn't just a girl with a racket anymore. She was a movement. And honestly, the association had no map for someone like her. There was zero precedent for this level of magnetism. Not even a little. The establishment was already gasping for air, just trying to keep pace. Back at the Australian Open, her first-round match on a tiny back court caused lines that snaked around the entire complex. Hundreds of hopeful fans were eventually turned away at the gate. Her pre-match interview didn't just trend, it went nuclear. Nearly 196,000 views, leaving icons like Carlos Alcaraz and world number 1 Aryna Sabalenka in the dust. Then came the Dubai surge. Tickets vanished as the crowds grew larger. The magic followed her everywhere. Then came Linz. When the footage reached Rafael Nadal, his reaction was raw and unfiltered. It hit him hard. To him, this wasn't just another viral clip, it was personal. He'd known her before the bright lights back at his academy in Mallorca. She was just 12 then, a kid a long way from home, struggling with the words but filled with a quiet fire. A grit that wouldn't break, a stubborn will to survive. "I can still see it," Nadal recalled during a chat. She was still finding her way, but that light was there. Over the years, he watched that flicker become a bonfire. He watched her tear through the Miami Open, charging into the semifinals in 2025. She toppled legends along the way. He felt the sting of her first final in Eastbourne, a brutal loss that slipped away despite having match points. And when the doubters started chirping, he didn't blink. He stood by her, a shield against the noise, seeing her in Linz, standing before thousands and giving them a piece of herself that hit different. "Seeing what she's become," Nadal remarked, "it's truly magnificent. She has evolved into something far grander than I ever envisioned. Her presence now transcends the sport itself." "She isn't merely an athlete," he remarked. "She has become a true beacon of hope." As skeptics tore apart her stats and standing among the legends, Nadal struck back instantly, insisting her worth isn't dictated by some number. Her true essence lies in the intangible, the heart, the resonance, and the unwavering faith she ignites. No point system on earth can quantify her spirit. She remains untouched by judgment, a self-made force. As the raw energy of that day in Linz finally started to fade, Alex shifted her gaze back to the mission at hand, dominating the Upper Austria Ladies Linz Open. Marking 35 years, the event broke tradition by unveiling massive indoor clay surfaces for the very first time in its history. This shifted the entire dynamic. The red dirt kills speed, sends balls skyward, and turns points into grueling wars of attrition. Success here requires a cold, tactical mind and immense grit, a sharp contrast to the lightning-fast blitz of hard-court play. Yet, for Alex, this was no foreign land. This was exactly where she belonged. She forged her skill set on this dirt at the Rafa Nadal Academy, mentored by the King of Clay himself. The slide, the sweat, and the struggle were etched into her DNA. Nevertheless, the statistics paint a grim picture, as her pro record on the dirt has yet to show real dominance. With only a few victories and no deep tournament runs, her Roland Garros debut last year ended in a painful first-round knockout. The mountain is steep, sure, but retreating simply isn't in her vocabulary. Speaking with Andy Roddick, she confessed the game has changed because everyone has her in their crosshairs now. She noted the endless film study and scouting reports from Indian Wells to Dubai, especially after her explosive breakthrough in Miami. While the blinding glare of fame is unavoidable, her core remains completely unshaken. "Miami felt like magic," she admitted, "but when the dust settles, it's just one more trophy on the shelf." This level-headed approach fuels her clay campaign. She keeps expectations low, knowing the dirt is always unpredictable. "I might take the title or crash out early. If I miss my shot here, I'll just hunt for it at the next stop." The lineup in Linz is brutal, with a surging Ekaterina Alexandrova back to defend her crown with fire in her eyes. Heavy hitters like Jelena Ostapenko, Clara Tauson, and Emma Raducanu are also lurking, all hungry for a deep run. It is a powerhouse bracket played on punishing ground, with the entire world scrutinizing her every step. But Linz has already shown us that Alex isn't just showing up to play, she's here to flip the entire script on what stardom means. Emma arrives without a seed, her rank tumbling from 29 to 45 following a brutal defeat by Karolina Muchova. Yet, even that narrative feels trivial compared to the storm brewing around Alexia. Linz wasn't just about feelings, it was a total disruption. Giving away those custom shirts was far more than a simple act of kindness. It tore down the old-school rules of how a superstar is supposed to engage with the crowd. For half a century, the tennis world has existed inside a tightly regulated clinical bubble. Sponsor-led meetups and rigid schedules keep stars at a distance, with every autograph and photo session carefully sanitized by PR teams. Alex tossed the rulebook out the window. No PR sign-offs, no handlers, just raw impulse. She just reached into her gear and shared herself. That unscripted moment felt like genuine soul rather than a corporate ploy. This wasn't a marketing campaign, it was pure, unfiltered truth, a rare commodity in modern sports. She went above and beyond, a fan whispered, clutching her new shirt. A simple wave would have been enough, but she actually stayed. She offered us a piece of her journey. That's the secret to her magnetism. In mere hours, the footage caught fire online, racking up millions of hits and dominating world news cycles. A minor gesture exploded into a cultural phenomenon, forcing the industry to admit this is how you truly build a legacy. One analyst noted, it isn't about billboards or big checks, it's about that visceral human bond. Alex didn't just go viral. She wrote a new manual for how athletes should actually treat their supporters. The WTA is reeling. This is a group that spent decades trying to manufacture the very loyalty Alex created in seconds. Now, a single player has blazed a new trail on her own terms. Raw, chaotic, and completely undeniable. The real mystery isn't the ceiling of Alexia's fame. It's whether the establishment can even survive her wake. What she pulled off in Linz was a seismic shift, not a hallmark moment. We are witnessing a revolution. At the Upper Austria Ladies Linz Open, she did much more than shake hands. She smashed the glass partition separating the stars from the people. In a game defined by rigid composure and control, that unprompted surge of raw emotion when she just gave of herself, it felt hauntingly authentic. It struck a chord for a reason. To the crowd, it was electric. Those jerseys weren't mere souvenirs. They represented Seoul, a beacon of Filipino heritage and unity. For those trekking across Europe, that second made every mile worth it. Every dollar spent and hour sacrificed felt seen. From a marketing lens, it was pure brilliance. It wasn't some cold boardroom strategy, it was a flash of gut-level genius. That kind of connection builds a devotion no commercial can buy. It isn't about collecting followers, it's about forging a ride-or-die tribe. Yet, a tension exists. For the Women's Tennis Association, this spark is both a thrill and a headache. They have labored for decades to expand the sport's reach. In Alex, they've encountered a force of nature who defies their rigid blueprints. She's far more than a cog in the machine. She is redrawing the map. It gets tricky, though leagues crave superstars until those stars start outgrowing the institution. Regarding her path on the court, well, sure, her statistical slide after the Miami Open exit looks bad. The grueling clay swings through Stuttgart, Madrid, Rome, and Roland Garros will truly demand blood, sweat, and tears. But these flashes of humanity prove that a lasting name isn't forged through spreadsheets. It comes down to influence. Currently, Alex Aria is reaching heights that elite winners rarely touch. She is defining value outside the final score. Honestly, gifting those jerseys was a move for the history books.